I watched her ex walk through my door, into the party I'd spent weeks planning, and within the hour she told me to leave my own apartment because I was making him uncomfortable. I didn't argue. I just nodded, walked out, and by the time she stumbled home drunk at 3 a.m., her entire life was waiting for her in boxes in the hallway with the locks already changed. My name's Connor, and I'm the guy everyone calls when something needs fixing. Not just computers, though that's what I do for a living, but life stuff too. Friends need help moving? I'm there with my truck. Someone's short on rent? I'll cover it without making them feel small about it. That's just how I'm wired. Maybe that's why I didn't see it coming with Rachel. When you're the steady one, the reliable one, you assume everyone operates with the same integrity. Big mistake. We met 4 years ago at a friend's wedding. She was a bridesmaid, I was a groomsman, and we got seated together at the rehearsal dinner. Rachel had this energy that filled a room, loud laugh, quick wit, the kind of woman who could make small talk with a stranger and have them crying laughing within 5 minutes. I was drawn to that light. My world was structured, predictable, maybe a little boring if I'm honest. She was chaos in the best way, or so I thought. 6 months in, we were inseparable. 2 years after that, she moved into my place, a decent 2-bedroom in the city that I'd saved 3 years to afford. Rachel was a wedding photographer, which sounds romantic until you realize the work is seasonal and unpredictable. Winter months were brutal. I'd come home to find her stressed, scrolling through empty booking calendars, and I'd just quietly cover her half of everything. Rent, groceries, utilities. Never made her ask. That's what love is, right? Showing up when it matters. I drove 8 hours round trip through a snowstorm once to pick up a vintage lens she'd been obsessing over on some forum. Paid for half her website redesign when she wanted to rebrand. Took her to an expensive steakhouse every year on our anniversary, even though I'm more of a burger guy, because she loved getting dressed up and feeling special. Little sacrifices that add up to a life you're building together, or at least that's what I told myself while she started pulling away. The red flags were there. I just kept my head down and ignored them. She talked about Derek constantly. Her ex. They dated for 3 years before me, broken up 6 months before we met, and apparently he was this brilliant, tortured artist type who'd chosen his career over commitment. Derek would have loved this place, she'd say at a gallery. Derek used to make me playlists like this, when I'd queue up music in the car. Always Derek, this ghost I was supposedly better than but never quite measured up to. She started posting throwback photos on social media. Nothing obvious, just casual memories that happened to feature him. Her friends would comment with knowing emojis. I mentioned it once, trying to keep my tone light, and she accused me of being insecure. It's just nostalgia, Connor. God, don't be that guy. So I swallowed it and tried to be cooler, more understanding, less that guy. Meanwhile, she was pulling further away. Less affection. More time locked on her phone with that little smile that wasn't meant for me. Excuses about being tired or stressed whenever I tried to initiate intimacy. Then came her 30th birthday. She'd been anxious about it for months. This weird existential spiral about aging and relevance. I wanted to do something big to show her she mattered, that we mattered. I suggested throwing a party at our place. She seemed hesitant, non-committal, so I just took over. Rented a sound system, hired a bartender, ordered catering from her favorite Italian spot across town. Spent an entire Saturday hanging string lights on the balcony, setting up photo corners because I knew she'd want content. Even commissioned a custom cake design to look like a camera with our initials in the lens. Cheesy maybe, but she cried when she saw it the night before. "You're too good to me," she whispered, arms around my neck. For one perfect moment, I believed we were solid again. The party started at 8 on a Saturday. I played host like it was my job, making sure everyone had drinks, introducing her photographer friends to my tech coworkers, keeping the vibe smooth. Rachel was radiant, laughing with her girlfriends, taking selfies under the lights I'd hung. She caught my eye once from across the room and mouthed, "Thank you." I felt like I'd finally done something right. Around 9:30, the doorbell rang. I was in the kitchen refilling ice when I heard it, so I wiped my hands and headed over. Opened the door to find Derek standing there with that effortless confidence guys like him always have. Tall, deliberately scruffy, vintage leather jacket, film camera hanging from his neck like an accessory. He smiled at me like we were old friends. "Hey man," Rachel said to swing by. My stomach dropped, but I forced a smile. "Sure. Come on in." I stepped aside, watched him scan the room until he spotted her. Watched her face light up in a way it hadn't for me in months. I closed the door and stood there for a second, gripping the handle, trying to process. She hadn't mentioned inviting him. Not once during weeks of planning. I went back to the kitchen, poured myself a drink I didn't want, and watched from a distance. They gravitated toward each other immediately, found a corner away from the crowd and just existed in their own bubble. Heads tilted close, her hand on his forearm while she laughed at something he said. Our friends noticed. I caught sympathetic glances, uncomfortable shifts in conversation when I walked by. Nobody said anything. That's the worst part of public humiliation. The silent witnesses who won't intervene. I tried joining them once. Walked over casually, slid my arm around Rachel's waist like I belonged there. She went rigid under my touch, and Derek looked everywhere except at me. The conversation died. After a painful 10 seconds, Rachel grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the hallway. "We need to talk," she said, voice tight. She didn't pull me far enough away. The hallway wasn't private, and voices carried over the music. People nearby could definitely hear when she said, "Derek feels uncomfortable with you hovering. You're kind of killing the vibe. Can you just give us some space? Maybe hang out in the bedroom for a bit until he leaves." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. "Rachel, this is our apartment. I'm not hovering. I'm hosting the party I threw for you." She rolled her eyes, actually rolled them, and said, "You're being dramatic. Derek and I have history, we're just catching up. You standing there glaring at him is weird and possessive. It's my birthday, Connor. Just let me enjoy it without your insecurity on display. Go watch TV or something." History. She said it like that justified everything. I felt something crack inside my chest. This clean snap like a bone breaking. "You're asking me to leave my own party because your ex is uncomfortable? Oh my God. You're making this into something it's not." Her voice had that edge now, the one she used when she wanted to make me feel unreasonable. "He's a friend. Get over it. If you can't handle me having male friends, maybe you should leave for a while. Go grab a drink at that bar down the street. Come back in an hour when you've calmed down." The logic was so twisted, so deliberately manipulated that I almost laughed. She'd created this situation, invited her ex without telling me, prioritized his comfort over mine, and somehow I was the problem for reacting. People were watching now, pretending to be absorbed in their phones or conversations but absolutely listening. I could feel the weight of their judgment, their pity. I didn't yell, didn't beg or plead or make a scene. I just looked at her for a long moment, this woman I'd rearranged my life for, and said, "Okay, Rachel." I grabbed my jacket from the closet and walked out. The door clicked shut behind me, and I could hear the party continue without me. The laughter and music unchanged by my absence. That hurt more than anything she'd said. I was that irrelevant. I sat in my car for a while, engine off, hands on the steering wheel. My phone lit up with a few texts from friends at the party. "You good? That was fucked up, man." I sent back thumbs ups and put the phone face down. Rachel didn't text. Not once. That silence told me everything I needed to know about where I stood in her priorities. I drove to an all-night diner, ordered coffee I didn't drink, and sat in a booth while the reality settled over me like concrete. Every sacrifice I'd made, every time I'd chosen her needs over mine, every moment I dismissed my own discomfort to keep the peace. It had all been building to this. Me sitting alone in a fluorescent-lit diner while she celebrated with the man she'd never really gotten over. Around midnight, I drove back. The party was still going, music thumping through the door. I sat in my car in the parking garage and waited. One by one, people trickled out. I watched Derek leave around 1:30, Rachel walking him to the elevator with her hand on his back. They stood there talking for a long time before he left. She was smiling. By 2 a.m., everyone was gone. I watched from my car as the lights in our apartment went dark, which meant she'd cleaned up and probably passed out. I gave it another 30 minutes to be sure. Then I went up. The apartment was a disaster. Cups everywhere, half-eaten food on paper plates, decorations already looking sad in the overhead light. I stood in the living room surrounded by the remnants of a party she'd chosen him over me at, and something in me just locked into place. No more confusion, no more second-guessing. Just clarity. I started in the bedroom, pulled her suitcases from the closet, the expensive set I'd bought her last Christmas. Methodically, almost mechanically, I packed her clothes, folded them neatly, organized them by type. Her shoes, her jewelry, her makeup scattered across the bathroom counter. The framed photos of us that I'd stupidly thought meant something. Every item was a reminder of a version of our relationship that only I had believed in. I boxed up her camera equipment from the spare room we'd converted into her office. Lenses, tripods, the laptop I'd helped her finance. The succulent plant on her desk that was already half dead from neglect. I even packed the groceries she preferred, the fancy yogurt and organic granola I didn't eat but always bought for her. The note came last. I found an index card and wrote 4 words. Now nobody's uncomfortable. Taped it to the largest suitcase. Then I called a 24-hour locksmith. Told him I needed the locks changed immediately, security concern. He showed up at 3 a.m. with a van full of equipment and no questions beyond the fee. While he worked, I went through my phone and took her off everything. Utilities, streaming services, the shared credit card I'd gotten her for emergencies. Changed passwords, updated contact information. Erased her from the administrative parts of my life with the same methodical calm I'd used to pack her things. By 4 a.m., her entire life with me was stacked neatly in the hallway outside the apartment door. Suitcases, boxes, bags, everything she'd brought into my space now outside of it. The locksmith finished, handed me new keys, and left. I locked the door from the inside and stood there for a moment in the silence. I felt nothing. No rage, no sadness, just this vast emptiness where she used to be. I slept on the couch that night because the bedroom still smelled like her perfume. I woke up at 6, earlier than I needed to, and immediately blocked her number. Not out of spite, just self-preservation. Called in sick to work, which I never do, and went to the gym. Pushed through a workout that left me shaking and exhausted. Endorphins finally cutting through the numbness. Came home, showered, and then just existed in the quiet. No TV, no music, just me and the space I'd reclaimed. She must have come home sometime that morning. I wasn't there to see it, had deliberately left before she'd wake up, but I heard about it later from the building super. Apparently she stood in the hallway for a long time, confused, then started pounding on the door. Called the super claiming she'd been locked out. He told her politely that the tenant had changed the locks and declined assistance. Said she left her stuff there and disappeared. The texts started coming from unknown numbers by noon. Friends of hers, probably letting her use their phones after I'd blocked her. What the fuck, Connor? This is insane. She's crying in my car. Call her back. I deleted them without responding. Changed my number that afternoon, only gave it to people who mattered. Life took on this strange new rhythm. I went to work, focused harder than I had in years. Picked up a side project from a friend's startup. Threw myself into code until 2 a.m. most nights. Started therapy, video sessions with a guy who didn't judge when I explained what happened. Sounds like you were already gone emotionally, he said during our third session. You just needed permission to leave. He was right. I rearranged the apartment, moved furniture, bought new bedding, hung different art. Erased the ghost of her from every corner. Got a gym membership, started running in the mornings. Adopted routines that were mine, not ours. Rediscovered the person I'd been before her, the one who had interests and boundaries and didn't shrink himself to accommodate someone else's chaos. Friends rallied in that quiet way good friends do. Invited me to things, didn't push when I declined. Checked in with texts that didn't demand responses. I started saying yes more. Dinners, weekend hikes, a camping trip I would have skipped before because Rachel hated bugs. I remembered what it felt like to be wanted in a space, not just tolerated. 2 months passed. I didn't track her on social media, had blocked or muted everything. But our circles overlapped enough that information filtered through. She'd moved in with Derek immediately after the party. The catching up had turned into a full reunion within hours of me walking out. They posted photos together, her with that same nostalgic smile she used to get when talking about him. It lasted 5 weeks. Derek, for all his artistic mystique, was apparently a nightmare. Jealous, controlling, flew into rages over nothing. Accused her of using him as a rebound, which was ironic considering she'd blown up our relationship for him. He dumped her over text after a fight about her liking an old photo of us on Instagram, blocked her everywhere, moved on immediately to someone new. She tried crashing with friends. That didn't work. Word had spread about what happened at the party, how she'd humiliated me publicly. People who'd been at our place that night, who'd watched her choose her ex over me, started distancing themselves. Invitations dried up. Group chats went quiet when she posted. The social circle we'd shared picked sides and most chose mine. Her work collapsed too. Wedding season came and she couldn't focus. Missed consults, showed up to shoots distracted and unprepared. Brides started leaving bad reviews. Her carefully curated professional reputation took hit after hit. Last I heard through the grapevine, she was living with her sister 2 states away, working retail to cover rent, trying to rebuild from nothing. Karma didn't need my help. It handled things just fine. She started reaching out around month 3. My new number didn't stay secret long. Mutual friends gave it up thinking they were helping. The first text came while I was having dinner with coworkers. Connor, this is ridiculous. We need to talk like adults. Let me at least get the rest of my things. No apology, no acknowledgement of what she'd done. Just entitlement like I'd overreacted and now we could move past it. I didn't respond. The texts escalated. You can't just throw away 3 years. Derek was a mistake. I see that now. I'm struggling here and you don't even care. She called from different numbers. Left voicemails that started desperate and ended angry. Pick up, Connor. I know you're there. We were good together. You can't just pretend I don't exist. I could actually. I gotten very good at it. Her sister called next, voice dripping with judgment. Connor, this is Amanda. Rachel's a mess because of you. What you did was cruel and unforgivable. She made one mistake and you ruined her life. The least you can do is talk to her. I hung up mid-sentence. Blocked that number too. The entitlement ran in the family apparently. 6 months after the party, I met Julia at a work conference. She was in project management at a partner company. smart and grounded with this calm energy that felt like the opposite of chaos. We got coffee, then dinner, then started actually dating. Nothing rushed, no drama, just two people enjoying each other's company without games or ghosts. The confrontation came at a mutual friend's birthday party 9 months after everything went down. I debated going but decided I wouldn't let her control my social life anymore. Julia came with me, her hand warm in mine as we walked into the bar. Rachel was there. I saw her immediately, sitting alone in a corner booth nursing a drink. She looked rough, hair unwashed, clothes wrinkled, eyes red-rimmed like crying had become a hobby. She spotted me across the room and her entire face crumpled before hardening with something like desperation. She approached our table where I was talking with friends. "Connor, hey, can we talk?" Privately, the group went quiet. I stayed seated, Julia beside me, and said, "What is it, Rachel?" Her eyes flicked to Julia, back to me. "Who's this?" Then, not waiting for an answer, "Look, I know I messed up. Derek was a disaster. He used me and threw me away like garbage. I see what I had with you now, what I lost. We were good together. Can we just talk? Figure this out?" She was unraveling right there in public, hands shaking, voice breaking. I felt the eyes of everyone around us watching, waiting to see how I'd handle it. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, just exhaustion at her inability to let go. "Rachel, you told me I was making him uncomfortable. You asked me to leave my own home for your ex at a party I planned for you. So I left, gave you all the space you wanted. Now you're here making me uncomfortable." I let that hang for a second. That chapter closed the night you chose someone else. I've moved on, built a better life with people who actually value me. I gestured to Julia, who gave Rachel a small, not unkind smile. "You're not part of my story anymore. I genuinely hope you figure things out, but don't contact me again." Her face went through several emotions at once. Shock, rage, humiliation. She opened her mouth, closed it, then hissed, "You're going to regret this." Before turning and walking out of the bar, the table exhaled collectively. Someone clapped me on the shoulder. "Handled that perfectly, man." I just nodded, turned back to Julia, and continued the conversation we'd been having before the interruption. Rachel became irrelevant in real time, a problem that solved itself by leaving. That was a year ago. Julia and I moved in together last month, into a new place neither of us had history in. Clean slate, fresh start. I proposed 2 weeks ago on a weekend trip upstate. She said yes before I finished the question, laughing and crying at the same time in that way that means real joy, not manipulation. I heard through the grapevine that Rachel's still struggling, still bouncing between temporary situations, still carrying the weight of decisions that blew up her life. I don't think about her much anymore. She's a cautionary tale I sometimes share when friends ask for relationship advice. A reminder that loyalty without reciprocity is just self-sacrifice wearing a disguise. The apartment where it all happened, where I packed her life into boxes and changed the locks at 3 a.m., I sold it 6 months ago. Too many ghosts. Julia and I built something new in a space that's completely ours, filled with laughter and plans and the kind of peace that comes from being with someone who chooses you every single day without hesitation. Sometimes I think about that night, standing in the hallway while she told me to leave so her ex would be comfortable. The moment I walked out and felt my life split cleanly into before and after. If I could go back, I wouldn't change anything. That humiliation, that public rejection, it was the permission I needed to finally put myself first. To understand that being the steady, reliable guy doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It means knowing your worth and walking away when someone treats you like an option. Now nobody's uncomfortable, especially not me.